In this video, I want to talk about how to create an introduction for your song. Now, the vast majority of songs that we listen to start with an introduction. They don't just start with the bass. So what I have here is I have a melodic line, a bass line, and a drum beat that I've put together for a phrase. So let's take a listen. Okay, so if that's going to be verse 1, I'm going to create an introduction for this. So a really common way to create an introduction is by starting your song kind of in layers, like stagger the entrance of the tracks. So I'm going to select all these regions and move this over to bar 9. So I'm going to have an 8-bar introduction. So one way to do this is I'm going to hold my Option key. I'm going to click on this bass track and drag it over. And then I'm going to hold my Option key again and click on the drums and drag and drop it to paste it here. But now, instead of having this drums go for 8 bars, I'm going to shorten that down to 4 and then move it over to 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this with just the bass, then I bring in the drums, and then verse 1 is going to start here. So let's listen to how that sounds. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Now, I can also do just the opposite. I could start it with the drums, and then if I grab the bottom left corner of my bass, I can trim that. So I start with drums and then bring the bass in at 5. And let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, and so whether you start that with drums and then bring in the bass, or start with bass and then bring in the drums, that's really up to you as the creator. So the other thing about Logic that I really like is it's really easy to export just a single region or a group of regions as an audio file. So to do that, I'm just going to take my mouse and I'm going to click and drag across these 2 regions that I have for the intro. Then I'm going to hold down the Command key and type the letter B as in bounce. So when this window pops up, I'm going to make sure I have MP3 selected. Starting at bar 1, I'm ending at bar 9. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to give this a name. Let's call this Intro 1. And then you want to make sure that you save it to your desktop. And then bounce. And once you do that, my desktop's pretty crowded, but you should see that file appear on your desktop. Now, there are other things you can do too to make your introduction interesting. So go over to the loop library, and I'm going to clear the drums. And if you look over here in the bottom right, find this button that says Sound Effects. Now, there are a lot of really interesting sounds you can find under Sound Effects. If you want to filter it more, you could filter by impacts, and then you can go through and listen to some of these different sounds that you can get under Sound Effects, and some of these might work really well even for the end of the song. But let's go back up here. I'm going to grab one of these boomers. So I can bring this over and drop it in at the beginning. So, and for this, I'm going to actually, I think, start with my bass. So I'm going to shorten this drum and take a listen to this. Or I could even say maybe move it over here. So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting sound. You've also got some vocal effects that can be interesting.
Nice to be in orbit.
Discovery Houston, press to ATO.
So whatever you find interesting, you can drop in. Let's see what this does. So some really interesting sounds there. And again, in Logic Pro, it's super easy. Like if I just wanted to export one of these sounds, I just click on the region, Command B, make sure I have an MP3. For this one, it should automatically, as long as you don't have the cycle bar on, it should automatically pick up where you have that region. And then just click OK. Call this Boomer 1, desktop, bounce. And you should find that sound over on your desktop. The last thing I want to show you in Logic is something that's really pretty cool that I like. Anything that you have that is an audio region, which are these blue regions, you can actually reverse the audio. So I'm going to solo this track for a bit here. And after I have this track selected, I'm going to hold down the Control key, the Shift key, and then I'm going to type the letter R and watch what happens. Okay, that's Control Shift R. And what it does is it reverses the audio. So I could go from something that's a boom that fades away to something that sort of reverses that, so it kind of leads into something. Which is kind of cool. And again, I can adjust the length of that region. Let's say we'll do it here. And let's put that back in and see what it sounds like. So that's a really pretty interesting sound. So again, once you reverse the audio, again, if you want to bounce it, just make sure you have that region selected. Command B, MP3, OK. I'm going to call this Boomer 1 Reverse and save it to my desktop. So any of these, once you have them saved as audio files on your desktop, you can then take those audio files and upload those into EarSketch and use them for your introduction to the song. So yeah, so get into Logic, go to the loop library. Again, I'm on sound effects. You can do vocals, you can do impacts. Let me see other things. Yeah, I'd probably stick to the sound effects and the stuff that you can find there. So a lot of interesting stuff. I hope that you find that you can add to your song, and I look forward to hearing what you create.